Okay. All right. So, start off with a couple quotes. Listening is an act of love. It's about insisting that every life matters and giving people a chance to feel heard. So I think we can all relate to that. If you think of a time when you didn't feel heard. So, you're talking or you're giving even some nonverbal communication, and you don't feel heard. Um, that can feel lonely and be frustrating if especially if you're trying to communicate and asking for help or something. And then and you'll learn who Anthony Ponce is here in a moment, but I like this a lot too. What I think is missing right now in our national dialogue is aggressive listening. Aggressive listening. So what do you two, Susie, Gabriel, what do you think he means by the phrase aggressive listening? What do you think that means? Aggressive listening. Any thoughts on what you think he might mean by that?
Focus on listening with one another instead of arguing.
Okay, that's very good. That's in context to what's happening right now in our world. I like that, Gabriel. I like that. Okay, good. What else? Susie, what do you think aggressive listening is? And feel free to type it in the chat if you're internet. Oh, good news, everybody. Well, if hopefully Susie's chatting. So they're not coming till next week, but I'm getting higher internet speed. I was eligible for a free upgrade. So apparently mine's really, really slow, which we have been probably, hopefully you all have not noticed it as much as I have. Are you with us, Susie? Still there? So I love your definition, Gabriel. I also take it to instead of, because you're right, so many people right now, they're not even listening. They just instantly are ready to go on the defense with their attack argument. But I also think of aggressive listening as really, like, have you ever been listening to, maybe it's right now in my class, like, I can hear her, she's talking, but I'm not absorbing because I'm distracted with something else. That might happen with some of our classes. Adults probably do it in staff meetings or what have you. So there's listening, but then there's really listening where you have put out all distractions. So, because our minds wander. So in your mind, there's always that ongoing to-do list. So you might be sitting listening to something. Yeah. But in your mind, have you ever done that? You're with someone. You're just, yeah, Gabriel's like, yeah. You're looking at them, but in your mind's going a million miles. I've done it here with my mom. We'll sit on the sofa and then she'll ask me a question and I'll go, what? Because I wasn't really listening. My mind was on something else. So I interpret aggressive listening as tuning out everything and truly giving your heart, soul, mind to listening and being in the moment with that person. So with the moving on here. So I think that it's easy to get distracted, and this kind of gets back to what we were just talking about a minute ago about our deadlines and prioritizing to-do lists and all that. I think sometimes, and especially now, this is so timely now, that sometimes we forget and we lose focus of what's literally right in front of us. So I think, and it's easy if something is in front of us to give our attention to it for that moment, but then we're moving on to the next thing, and then we forget, and then we have those unheard voices that are still maybe struggling with something. So, and again, I think that what we're going through right now, from the challenges to the sadness, depression, what we're going through is impacting people in different ways. And maybe some people are finding resilience in it that they didn't know they had. So when you think about it, and this is why, and I know this is all might be seeming roundabout about how's Miss Roush leading into story ideas. The number one thing that I've run into over the years is when I ask for story ideas, everyone, the instant, I don't have any. I can't think of anything. And I think what we tend to do is we overthink what's a good story. Like we're thinking of something maybe big and something splashy. But sometimes it's the simplest things that are the good stories. So ask yourself, just, quietly, what's your big story? Gabriel, Susie, you don't know, you weren't here last year, but Gabriel he's done a few really nice stories where he's just kind of looked at stuff that have been important in his life. He did one on is it a middle school teacher, Gabriel, who had the dogs?
Middle school counselor.
Middle school counselor. She had these precious dogs that she had as they were therapy dogs. And so, because dogs and pets can be very calming, and they've done research on that too. And that even just petting a dog can lower your and enter mine. He literally just walked up to me. He's so smart. He knew I was talking dogs. And whether he lowers our blood pressure in this house is a whole other story. Most dogs do. No, but so anyway, Gabriel did a great story because that was just something that he remembered, and it was nice. And he went and did a nice feature story about this woman and what she's been able to do with dogs. And then Gabriel has shared some other things. He did a nice story on his mother being a published author. So, that's a cool story. But sometimes you might not think something that your own parents is doing would be, because you're just used to it. It's in your house. But that's a cool story. So, and think internally, what is your big story? And then ask those around you. So kind of like Gabriel last year. Oh, wait, my mom's, she's published books. That's kind of cool. People might be interested in that. And I think the main thing that you will find if you just start talking to people, so, asking simple questions. Hey, what's something that's really impacted you in life? Just a question like that will open the door to a story. And I think you'll also find, and this gets back to active listening, that people, I think you'll find too, you might find it interesting with asking, the older family members in your life. I think that they will really appreciate that you're showing interest and that you're asking. And then what you'll find out is that people tend to really open up and will tell you things. So, step number one, and again, I'm calling it One Story Project just to kind of help put it in the context that we're working towards a goal here. So just go over this. These are, again, sort of some things to help that you might normally take for granted, but there might be some hidden gems in them. So, what are some issues that are emerging in our school community? I'll tell you right now, one of them is obviously the return to school. It's looking very positive that we'll be able to do that here sooner instead of later. So there probably are different issues that are going to arise in that. We're going back, but it's going to be different. So, there's something. What are you regularly challenged with? What are issues impacting your building, school, district, community? Same kind of thing there. So this would be more when we really get back going. But what groups at your school, clubs, sport teams don't really get the coverage they should? So we kind of know how that goes. That a lot of times it's like the football team. They get lots of coverage, lots of attention. But are there? Good morning, Ethan. We are in the second block class is where I've posted this content First block, you can just go back and if you want the recording's really short. Once I post it later, we just kind of went over tips for procrastination and organizing. Now we're working towards finding story ideas, but a different way to approach that. So at school, again, are there clubs and sport teams that don't get covered as they should? I don't know if y'all have seen on Netflix the big, like that everyone's been talking about lately, is the show The Queen's Gambit. And it's about a girl, true story, that got into chess. She was actually from Lexington. And so it's a period piece. I think it was set back in like the 40s and 50s, but it's really, really good. But point being, that's kind of bringing back awareness on chess. So maybe your school has a chess club or something, and the fact that that's in the, you know, a hot trending series right now, that might be interesting to talk to kids that are on a chess team. What student voices are underrepresented? So again, I kind of go back to, we all know in school settings, there's always like the groups that, you know, get, you know, the sports gets covered. Certain student voices, probably usually hear from the same group all the time. So, you know, maybe who do we not hear from? What groups are out there that maybe we need to give them a voice and what's going on with them? Let's see. Down a little bit below, which records of shared history might we lose if we don't cover them now? So again, another thing about being storytellers, audiovisual, is that we have the great privilege to serve as record keepers and, you know, for future. So, you know, maybe record a series of interviews with people about almost like an oral history about, you know, how they're coping or strategies and or how this has impacted them. I was actually, when I was on the phone yesterday with Windstream getting my appointments set up to get my better internet, I was talking with the lady on the phone, and because I had started the conversation and I'm a teacher and my internet is not doing well. So then we were chatting for a bit, and she's like, oh, she goes, I homeschooled my youngest child. It's been a disaster. And she chose to homeschool her youngest because she didn't think he would be good about keeping his mask on. But she was like, it's been a huge failure. He doesn't want to listen to us because we're the parents. And she was just stressed. She's like, I'm afraid he's going to have to repeat kindergarten, and because he doesn't know, it shouldn't be where he is with Reed. And I kind of talked to her again because I was listening. And I said, you know, I think he's going to be in the same boat as so many kids. So I really wouldn't worry about your child. I think he's going to be fine. And, you know, and then she went in to talk about other things about, and how, I mean, she's working from home. She's able to take, you know, service calls from home. And then she made a comment that kind of, well, I agree with just hearing someone else say it. She goes, you know, I don't think that we're ever going to be back to 100% the way it was. And she just kind of said, and I kind of thought, well, you know, she's probably right. So just talking to her, you know, that the fears, the concerns that people have, it might be interesting if we did kind of a series, especially of different ages of people. We could do it in like a news magazine format show, more talk show style, instead of putting together actual edited pieces. You know, what do people think it's going to be? And because years, you know, centuries from now, like when, you know, when you all are grown and maybe have families and have younger ones or what have you, or whatever, wherever we all are, and, you know, 40, 50 years and people are younger, you know, they're, you know, it's kind of like 9/11. Y'all are now past that age that you weren't here for that, but there's all that recorded history, so you're aware of it, and you can ask someone, where were you when? They'll tell you. So it's going to probably, I think, be important to have some kind of oral history of what we're all going through now. And again, this just gets back down to what we always talk about, what's the best way to tell the story, video, podcast. We can always put up a photo essay, you know, a photo of someone with a quote that they think. So think outside the box as we formulate this next broadcast. And then also let's think of a way that we can get every single person involved. I know on this first one, we're just kind of learning as we go with the new WeVideo and editing remotely. And, you know, some of us have had, some of you all have had bigger jobs than others. And so we're going to find a way to incorporate everyone to have some value in the product. So next, who to interview? Let's see how we're doing on time here. Okay. Who to interview. So again, listening is a lost art form. We've talked about the importance of it, but it's also a lost art form for many reasons. Again, we've got our technology that people are immersed in. Okay. Sorry, just got a message. Tyrone will be here this afternoon. Okay. So I mentioned before, this gentleman, Anthony Ponce, and I don't know if it's Ponce or Ponce. He was a former journalist like me. He spent about 10 years in broadcast journalism. He was an anchor in Chicago, which is a huge TV market. He quit his job in TV to become a Lyft driver. His story is really interesting. And then host of what has become a hugely popular podcast called Backseat Rider Podcast. So he's a Lyft driver, but he is using his experience to talk to people and then do what we've been talking about, listen to their stories. And, you know, because you've got a captive audience when they're in your car. So kind of like this, again, some more starters to get you thinking. We mentioned a minute ago, find those voices that are less heard. So I think our tendency when we are interviewing and talking to people is always to ask the positive stuff. Hey, but you know, what's great? What's, you know, tell me about your success. But I think sometimes we're going to find the greater stories are in maybe the things that we're not now. You know, we normally don't talk about what's not great. I always go back to my job interview for my second TV job. And, you know, job interviews, you're there to promote yourself. Like, you have practiced, oh, here are my strengths. Here's why you should hire me. And I remember the news director, he did all the questions I was expecting. He goes, what's your worst quality? Or I forget how he phrased it, but what's your worst? And I mean, I wasn't prepared for that. And so then, since I wasn't prepared, I sat there thinking. And so then in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm taking too long to think. So now he's thinking that I'm so high on myself that I can't come up with a fault. So then I was like swirling, like, oh my gosh, I'm taking too long. So then what do I blurt out? Which is one of my worst traits, but keep in mind, it's for a job on TV. I said, procrastination. And I'm like, oh, that was smart, Michelle. You just told a guy that the whole business is run on deadlines, that you're a procrastinator. But I recovered. And I do think this is true. And I think it's why I did well in that business. You're on a constant daily, hourly deadline. And I'm used to doing stuff because I procrastinate. So I do stuff really well. It stresses me out sometimes, but I do it well on deadline. So I ended up getting that job, as a side note. So, but kind of freaked me out talking about that. But you see, I turned it into how, you know, for that particular job that worked. So consider asking a sports player, your school, how he deals with failure. You know, athletes are out there to win. How do they deal with failure? Ask your principal or a teacher, what scares him or her the most when they come to work each day? You might get some interesting answers. And then in the process, we're learning things about people that we didn't know, because I think you don't think of maybe teachers and principals as that, you know, we might be stressing over some of the exact same things you are. So that might be an interesting conversation. So again, and getting back to finding the people who normally are staying out of the spotlight, give them a voice. And then this is what getting into this man who left his TV career to become a Lyft driver is turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. So again, I keep circling back. Something that might seem super ordinary to you might be a really compelling story. So we're not going to listen to all this. It's 35 minutes, but I want to give you a taste of his podcast. So again, he's a Lyft driver. He's got his car set up for audio and recording. And then he talks to people and he has a real conversation, and then it's a podcast. So again, I ask you as you listen, focus, listen, be an active listener. If you want to take any notes, if you hear something that strikes you, something maybe that you would want to add, if you were there, you would have asked follow-up questions too. So again, we're not going to listen. I just want to give you a taste of this to give you a feel for how he does this. And again, what we can learn from people.
Welcome to Podcast One. We hope you'll support our sponsors who bring you these podcasts absolutely free and with limited interruptions. And of course, we appreciate you listening to this show, which will get started in just a second.
A payroll and HR company needs to be prepared for
With the trainer that she really liked.
Sorry.
On a scale of one of two ways. Switch over to
company needs to be prepared for whatever is going to happen. You could say that over 70 years of experience helping businesses all over the world run smoothly is good preparation. But for ADP, that's not enough. To make sure millions of people are getting paid on time and in compliance, we're staying on top of each new piece of legislation. So when it comes down to it, ADP isn't just a payroll and HR company. We're the company that helps you navigate the complexities. ADP, HR talent, time, benefits, and payroll. Informed by data and designed for people.
You need support, someone to help you start something new, help you see what's possible. For more than 30
think this is
years,
the last
busy
commercial.
adult students have trusted Indiana Wesleyan University with their dreams. IWU partners with you wherever you are in your journey to offer you flexible, affordable, career-focused education. You know why you want to earn a degree. IWU knows how to get you there. Learn more about available financial aid and see a complete list of more than 100 online academic programs at iwueducation.com.
Hey everyone, this week I again want to thank 27 of you, the same 27 I thanked last week, who heard this intro and then took the time to switch over to Lyft and use my promo code during the month of July. I really appreciate this a lot. Those 27 people are now enjoying $5 off each of their first 10 rides on Lyft, and they have also helped support this podcast. So for those of you who haven't signed up for Lyft yet, please do so and punch in the code Backseat Rider, all one word, into the payment tab to support the show. Just so you know, though, Lyft is not a sponsor of Backseat Rider, doesn't have anything to do with the conversations you will hear in this podcast. Again, the code is Backseat Rider, and it is good for $50 in ride credit for any new users of the Lyft app.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com presentation.
I don't even know the story behind it, but my nickname is Booby, and my family gave it to me when I was a baby, and it just literally stuck.
My mom always called me Kitty, so all my family still calls me Nene. They just still refer to me as Nene.
A nickname can go one of two ways. For affection,
It's comforting. It's a comfort thing.
but also for ridicule.
It was hurtful, and it just made me self-conscious.
His last name is Baca, so they would just call it Bacon. And
Mine, there was a really big girl. She was heavy set, and they nicknamed her. This is horrible. It's horrible.
Think for a moment about 2 or 3 people in your life who you are really close with, whether it's a couple of best friends or family members. And then think about how you address those people in day-to-day life, what you call them, how you refer to them. And then think about what their real first names are, all right? The names on their birth certificates. Now, I'm going to guess that for 95% of the people listening right now, what you actually call these 2 or 3 people only bears a slight resemblance, if any, to what is actually on that person's birth certificate.
We all have nicknames.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Backseat Rider, the podcast where I drive a Lyft, and whoever ends up in the backseat of my car becomes the cast of this show. And this week, we will be exploring these nicknames that seem to be somewhat universal, but rarely ever get deconstructed. So we're going to talk about how they came to be, what they mean, and how they've impacted our lives. And I want to start with a woman who I picked up in the Ravenswood neighborhood.
So my name is Hannah, and they would call me Hanorexia.
They being the kids in her middle school. She did not have an eating disorder, FYI, but at the time, she described herself as beanpole skinny. Do you remember who started that?
I don't. I don't remember who started it, but I remember, it was hurtful, and it just made me self-conscious. And I would try so hard to eat and eat and eat, and I just had a really fast metabolism. And I was just really thin. My sisters are really thin. My father was really thin.
She's 28 years old now. She works as the GM of a local restaurant. And even though it's at least 15 years later, a nickname like that, not something that's easy to forget. How hurtful was the Hanorexia comments on a scale of 1 to 10, would you say?
I would say probably an 8.
Uh-huh.
I tried to and it wasn't constant, which I'm, lucky about. I still had a lot of friends, and even those people that would pick on me, were still somewhat nice to me, but that just always made me self-conscious about my body.
How did that manifest then? Did you avoid certain kinds of clothes? Did you avoid certain situations?
No, not really. I just had bad anxiety, being in social situations, because I felt like people were judging me.
Yeah.
I just felt like I stood out because I just felt awkward in my own body.
As a teenager, she was always self-conscious about being underweight.
And then obviously, as I got older and, my metabolism changed, and I moved to the city and discovered wonderful food and whatever, I started to gain more weight, but then I was unhappy with the weight that I gained, and not knowing how to really lose it or have more of a healthy lifestyle, because I never knew how to do that. I could always just eat whatever I wanted and be thin. So I was like, well, I want to start making a lifestyle change.
She compensated for the skinniness, but says her weight started swinging in the other direction.
I just kind of felt like maybe a couch potato, kind of.
Yeah.
And I gained weight, but it had gone beyond the point of me being happy with it.
Going into this year, she made a New Year's resolution to get to a healthy weight that she'd be confident with. And so she signed up for a gym membership. And with many gyms, this one came with a set of one-on-one sessions with the trainer. So she went to that first training session, and she was so anxious and exhausted during it that she says she nearly passed out. And the trainer she was paired up with was also concerned enough that they both decided to cut that workout short.
She texted me, and she, wanted to check up on me, and she wanted to see if I was okay. And she's like, you still have 2 more training classes. And I wanted to give it another shot. So I did. And then ever since then, I was going 2 times a week. And then last month I changed it to 3 times a week.
Unlike other people whose New Year's resolution follow through pretty much fades out by this time in the year, here we are 8 months into 2017, and Hannah is now kicking things up a notch.
This is the first year, yes, that I feel really great about myself.
In fact, that day I was driving her from her house to the gym to meet with that trainer. And when I asked her if she had any advice for other people who are looking to make a similar change in terms of wellness and health, she says that the difference maker for her was linking up with the trainer that she really liked and really got along with. In fact, the two have since become really good friends, and just being able to fall back on that one-on-one support.
The outward appearance definitely does play into it because I see the results of my hard work, but more of it is definitely inward. I've challenged myself in ways that I never had before. And I'm proud of myself for that, and I'm proud of myself for sticking with it and being so determined.
Is the nickname, the old nickname, is that ever a motivator for you, or is it just kind of a sore spot?
I guess it's kind of a sore spot. I try to just like rise above it and not even think about it anymore. Because I know that that's like not who I am, and you know, sometimes I get upset for like letting it affect me. So it's something that you definitely remember. I mean, you always remember, you know, hurtful things and how it affected you, unfortunately. But I guess it's just what you do with it.
I have some friends that like still currently call me Little Leg.
Little what?
Leg.
Little leg?
Yeah.
This passenger is 20 years old, and she works the front desk at a number of hair salons on the north side of Chicago. Why is that?
Because I'm super short compared to almost all my friends. Like, they're so much taller than me, so they, instead of calling me Little Legs, which would probably make more sense, they call me Little Leg. And I've had like multiple questions like, oh, do you have like a smaller leg than another, or is it like a smaller butt? And I'm like, no, just got little legs, I guess.
That was my first thought when you said that, is that one of your legs, my wife, one of her legs is shorter than the other.
Yeah.
So that was my first thought when you said little leg.
Yeah, so they still call me that. And
so both your legs are the same length?
Yeah, they're both the same length. I'm just pretty short.
How tall are you?
5'1".
5'1".
But I feel like that's short. Kind of, I don't know. Yeah, but my friends have a blast calling me Little Leg. And then...
When did they first start calling you that?
Probably like my sophomore year of high school. And I'm 20, so not that long, but it's definitely stuck with some people. Especially my roommate, she calls me Little Leg like very often in public, and I always get stares, like they're always looking at my legs, and I'm just like, they're normal. They're the same length.
You can tell by her tone there that she takes the nickname as something that her friends say in good fun. She says they're all close enough that she knows they are not saying it in a mean-spirited type way.
It really doesn't. It doesn't bother me personally when they call me that. I think when I have to explain to people, especially when they ask me, like, do you have one leg that's smaller than the other, shorter than the other? And then it's kind of like, no, it's just a joke. And then other people look at me weird, like people actually have that problem. So, but it doesn't personally affect me in like a negative way.
And it also helps that she accepts her height.
Because I'm not insecure about my shortness, but it's definitely when I'm like around all my friends that are taller than me, I'm just like, wow. Especially when we take pictures, I'm like, wow, I'm really short. So I think it's like a way of like just embracing my shortness, and they embrace it.
Okay, so that's in there. If you want to go in and listen to the rest, also you can Google him and find his website and look at all the different topics. But hopefully you just kind of picked, and he kind of has done his podcast differently, where you'll notice he has some questions, but then he'll go fill in some blanks with a little segment, to story tell it, and then do some more sound bites. So, but you can tell he's just asking regular, everyday questions, and people are answering. And hopefully throughout it, you kind of noticed, maybe you jotted something down that struck you, but people would say something that you might nod with because you relate to it. When I was in elementary school, because the kids, they would call me Roach, because my name's Roush, but they called it Roach. And, I think it was mainly around first, second grade. And, in the moment, like it hasn't scarred me for life, but, in the moment I'd be like, oh, it's not nice. It's Roush, because you're little. But, they thought that was funny because my last name was almost Roach. So I think when you hear stories, you can relate and you can reflect back like, oh yeah, I remember that, or what have you. So again, finding those stories with people that are highly relatable, even though they might be highly common. Quick question for you. How do you think that his format of interviewing people in the car is different than when, yeah, go ahead, Gabriel, than how we would normally do it.
It feels less informal, so you're not as like stressed. Yes, you feel more comfortable because it's an everyday setting. And
Yeah.
it also has the added benefit of they can't necessarily leave, which sounds really bad.
Yes. Yes. No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's a captive audience. They're in his car. And you're right. It's I think in any of you all, if you've ever had a mic clipped on and being interviewed, you know, people that instant thing tense up, get nervous. And it, because it is feels more formal, but the art of it is to make it feel informal. And so sometimes it might be with the location we pick, or how you phrase it. What might be, maybe Ethan or Susie wants to chime in. So Gabriel mentioned that being in the car, well, captive audience, they're right there. But what might be the downside of trying to do this, interview someone in the car? What might be the downside of that? Anyone think of anything? Have you all ever had been stuck in a room or someplace with someone and you're trying to talk to them and they're not engaging in the conversation, and so then it's awkward? Like it's like one-sided and they're just sitting there, and or maybe you can tell they don't want to talk to you. They're like, yeah, yeah, I don't have any nicknames. You know, so then it's kind of like, then it's kind of like awkward, you know, uncomfortable. Because so now they're stuck in the car for this ride, and then it's awkward. Or have you ever had that awkward silence where maybe there's not a conversation, but you've been in, you know, a car ride or cab or something, and it's just quiet. You don't know what, and you're just like, I want this to hurry up and be over so I can get out of here. Awkward silence. So there are pros and cons to that. So again, a lot of it's getting to, you know, finding the right people. Let's see. So I will leave this for you to kind of read. But again, it's just a little bit more on his background, which is just really interesting to me that I'm sure his family thought he was nuts, that he left, you know, his nice job in television and was like, I'm going to be a Lyft driver. I'm sure they were like, what? But that risk paid off. So, and then he kind of talks about, you know, why in the car. And then here, this to me is striking. And this is what we we're kind of talking about at the beginning of class, as that listening aggressively, you know, being a very active listener. Anymore these days, people aren't used to that, where everyone's in their phones, immersed in their own world. That I think that creates, again, another loneliness factor, is that people don't feel listened to. And when you actually do, that really can touch someone, that you just cared to listen. And again, he again talks more about that. So, you know, try something new. Try active listening. Whoops. Oh, I went too far. So I set all that up with, and again, we're missing a lot of people today. So tomorrow's our day off. So I'll put some instructions in tomorrow, what I want y'all to do. But I want you to come to the table Thursday, kind of using what we've discussed today about finding something compelling in the ordinary. And we do that by asking people questions. Come Thursday and we'll talk about what we think we want to do. Again, in my mind, I'm thinking maybe more of a talk show format. Now, granted, we're not in the studio. We can't have people actually there, but we can get these interviews like him, but host them. Go ahead, Gabriel.
I don't usually leave the house, and there's also, given the pandemic, um, we might not be able to talk to many or anyone at all this week, given all those factors.
Okay, so I know that valid point, and I don't want y'all out, but you know how we're going to do it because it's the sign of the times. We can Zoom interview people, like record, like right now. If it were just Gabriel and I, you're on my screen, I'm recording, and then that's how we can pull some sound bites. So, and if you look on like national no one's in the studios anymore. Everyone's Zooming here. So just a thought. I'm just throwing these things out there. We don't. We'll talk about more Thursday, but valid points. And then two, if you have family members, talk to family members. I know if you're like me, you only have one other family member in the house, but other people might have multiple family members. So just think, we're going to think outside the box. And find ways to do it. Maybe we just talk to people within our class, almost like we did on our podcast. But yeah, good. Thanks for bringing that up because that was probably a lot of people's question too. Like, how are we going to do this, Miss Roush? So come Thursday again, just think about it. You might want to go look at his when you go. I probably should just go ahead and put a link to his website to make it easier for y'all. But if you just go and look at his episode titles, that might give you some ideas too about how just took some really ordinary topics like that one, nicknames, and turned it, you can turn it into something interesting and story worthy. So with that, any questions? Again, if you're feeling inspired, go look at it, lay in bed today on this yet another gloomy day, listen to a podcast of his, and get some ideas for Thursday. Another quick reminder, and I'll post this in Canvas. If you were a student of the month, tomorrow noon, meet with Mr. Miller just for a fun, informal chit chat. I really encourage you to go. And even if you can't stay the whole time, pop in. Please pop in. He just wants to hear from y'all, especially if with us coming back to school. I know he's really interested in getting feedback from you all. And then let's see. I feel like grades are due. Progress grades are due Monday. Just make sure you're not missing anything. I'm actually going through my records. I finished up sending emails to my middle school kids yesterday. So y'all are next, but I'm just going to go through and make sure my records gel with yours. So I'll send you an email if I'm missing anything. We don't have a whole lot in there right now. But so it should be easy. Just go back if you're missing something, a discussion from last week, knock that out, get that done. So we could all have an awesome progress grades report that Monday. I have to turn in the grades Monday. So any other questions before I let you go? None? Okay, y'all. As I said, I will get with the other two about our show and make sure they're not having any technology problems. And I know, Gabriel, what? Yawns are seriously contagious for real, and I don't know why.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So anyway, Gabriel and I both will be popping into the Wii video and checking that out, and hopefully we'll get the other couple elements in there. And Tyrone will be in the afternoon, so I'll make sure he gets his sports in there. So if there's not anything else, I'm going to let you go. We're done for the day since that was both classes, so you do not need to come back here at 9:35. Again, Canvas, check it for announcements tomorrow. Check both classes. Make sure I'll have something in each. And then otherwise, we will see you Thursday morning.